We continue now at the top of Daf Chesam and Beis and Mesechet Shekalim. This is Shekalim Daf 8b. On the previous Zalma, the Gemara had quoted the Mishnah in Shabbos, which talks about the fact that you're allowed to clear 4 or 5 boxes on Shabbos. It's not considered to be a tircha on Shabbos. So Reb Zeira asked Rabbi Yoshia, how large are these boxes that we're talking about? And now Rabbi Yoshia answers, Nilmod Sasam min HaMeforish. We can learn out where it's not clear from our Mishnah right over here in Shekalim, where it is clear, the measurement. The Tanya, as we learned in a Braisa, B'shalosh kupos shel shalosh soin. These boxes that they used to take the money from the lishka, they took the money from the chamber and they put them in the boxes in order to bring the karbanos tzibur. Each of these boxes was 3 soin, shehein tisha soin. If you total all 3 boxes together, that's 9 soin, shehein esrim v'sheva soin. They put it in there 3 times a year, that's 9 times 3, comes out to be 27 soin. And so we'll learn out the same thing over here. The boxes that we're talking about in Mesechet Shabbos are going to be 3 soin each. And the Braisa concludes, Tarmanas halishka, again, it was into these boxes that they took the money from the lishka and they placed it into these boxes. And the Gemara now quotes the Mishnah of V'chosav alein Aleph Beis Gimel. It said in the Mishnah that on these boxes, on the first one was written an Aleph, the second one a Beis, the third one a Gimel. And the Gemara says, Mimnei ma kosav alein Aleph Beis Gimel. Why is it that we wrote Aleph Beis Gimel on these boxes? Lomar, it's in order to say, Mistapek min harishona kodem l'shniya, that you take from the first box before the second box. Umin hashniya kodem l'shlishis, and then you take money from the second box before the third box. It's in order to identify the proper order to take the money from the boxes in order to buy the karbanos. And the Gemara continues, Tamon Taninan, we learned over there in a Mishnah in Mesechet Shabbos, Hamotzi yayin kedei mezigas hakos. Halach is, if a person carries wine, transports it from one rishus to another, what's the amount of wine that's considered chashuv enough that the person is obligated for carrying on Shabbos? It's in order to pour a cup of wine. Now in general, when you pour a cup of wine, you add on about 3 times the amount. So whatever amount of raw wine you have, you add on 3 times the amount of water in order to create a cup of diluted wine. But the question is, how big is this cup of wine? So Rabbi Zira shalas Rabbi Yoshia, kama shiuran shel kos. Rabbi Zira again asked Rabbi Yoshia the same question as before, but here in reference to the halach of Shabbos, of carrying on Shabbos, he said, how much is considered a cup of wine that we're talking about? What is this kedei mezigas hakos? So Amar lei, so again he said to him, this is Rabbi Yoshia said to Rabbi Zira, nilmad sasam min HaMeforish. Again, we can learn out where it's unclear from the place where it is explicit. The Tani Rabbi Chia, because Rabbi Chia taught, Arba kosos she'omru, when we talk about the Dalit kosos on Pesach, yeshnon revias shel yain bitalki. That is a quart of a wine, bitalki, meaning Italian wine, as the Karbon Ha'ed over here says, yeshnon revias shel yain hoitalki, delachol kos sagi berova revias yain. In other words, a quarter of a revias halug of wine, that's how much wine you have that's undiluted. Kedei shim zigenu v'yam without revias, and then you're going to add water, and it's going to be a revias, because again, you're going to add about 3 times the amount. If you have wine where you don't have 3 times the amount of water as wine, that's not really called wine. That's exactly what we're talking about in terms of carrying wine in the Mishnah. We're talking about a cup where you have, again, a rova revias, a quarter of a revias of undiluted wine that you're then going to later add water to. And the Gemara continues, Amar Rabbi Yossi bar Avin, Rabbi Yossi bar Avin says, Mishum Rabbi Yochanan, the name of Rabbi Yochanan, de Rabbi Yehuda, that comment above, that the shear of carrying wine is kedei mezigas hakos, that follows the opinion of Rabbi Yehuda. The Tani, because it was taught, Mayim, what's the share of carrying water on Shabbos? Kedei gemia, it's the amount that is swallowed in one shot. Rabbi Yehuda Omer kedei loshav b'henes hakilor. Rabbi Yehuda says a different shear by water. It's the amount that you take the ointment that they used to put on the eye. They used to sometimes put water in it. It's that amount of water is considered the shear for carrying on Shabbos. And then when it comes to yayin, when it comes to wine, the first opinion is again kedei gemia, the amount that a person swallows. Rabbi Yehuda Omer, Rabbi Yehuda says kedei mezigas hakos. It is the amount of mezigas hakos. Again, that's the shear before that we see is Rabbi Yehuda's shita. And the Gemara continues, mazug bekama. What if you have diluted wine? What is considered a chashuv amount of diluted wine that you're chayiv for carrying it on Shabbos? And the Gemara says, Nashmiena min hado, we can learn it from the Braisa as follows, Mayim kedei gemia, again, by water, it's the amount to swallow. Rabbi Yehuda Omer, Rabbi Yehuda says, kedei loshuf b'henes hakilor, it's the amount of water that you use to put in the ointment that's put over the eye. Again, that's for medicinal purposes. Yayin, when it comes to wine, kedei gemia, according to Tanakama, again, the amount that you swallow. Rabbi Yehuda Omer, Rabbi Yehuda says, kedei mezigas hakos, it's the amount of wine that you would add water to it in order to make a diluted, proper cup of wine. The Gemara therefore says, Hada Amra, this shows Mazu Kedei Mezigas Hakos. If you have diluted wine, it's going to be that full cup, that revius of diluted wine is going to be the proper shear. And the Gemara continues, Kama Shiuren Shalkos. What is the measurement of the cups of wine that we drink on Pesach in terms of the modern day measurements? That's what the Gemara is asking. Rabbi Avin Amar, Rabbi Avin says, Titarton Uravia. The measurement is a titarton, which was a measurement in those days, plus a quarter of a titarton. That's the amount that we drink for the cups on Pesach for the Dalit Kosos. The Gemara says, can you drink all the cups at once? Do you have to make a separation between each cup? And the Gemara answers, Let's answer from the fact that Rabbi Mona says in the name of Rabbi Yossi, it says that if you hear Hallel in the Beis HaKnesses, that's enough. You don't have to do Hallel again at home on the Seder night. So the Gemara therefore says if you're eliminating Hallel, it comes out that the third and fourth cup are right next to each other. So comes out that if you drink them right one after the other, that's going to be fine. The Gemara says, okay, what about drinking every cup individually, but taking breaks? You don't drink the whole cup at once, you drink it a little at a time. So the Gemara answers, the reason you're drinking it is just to drink it. It's not in order to get drunk. So therefore, if a person drinks it, takes a little break while he's drinking the one cup, he's not going to get drunk, but that's perfectly fine. And the Gemara continues, what about being Yotze the Dalit Kosos with wine of the Shemitah year? You might think that since it's an obligation to drink Dalit Kosos, that would be like paying a debt with produce from Shvius. So is that a problem or not? Gemara says, Tani Ravoshia taught, Yotzin B'yayin Shel Shvius. You are Yotze with wine from the Shemitah year. And the Gemara says further, Ma'u Lotzes B'kunditin. Are you Yotze the Dalit Kosos with kunditin? That's like a wine that had a certain amount of spices in it. And the Gemara says, Minatani Bar Kapora, since Bar Kapora taught, kunditin Kayayin. Kunditin is considered like regular wine. So Hada Amra Yotzin B'yayin kunditin. You see from this, you are Yotze B'yayin kunditin. And the Gemara says, Ma'u lotzes b'yayin mezugin. What about if you are trying to be yotze the dalit kosos with wine that's overly diluted, more diluted than normal? And the Gemara says, Minatani Rabbi Chia, since Rabbi Chia taught, Arba kosos sha'amru yotzen bohen, bein chayin uven mezugin. He said that the dalit kosos you can be yotze whether it's raw wine, meaning undiluted, or whether it's diluted. Uvilvad she'yehei bohen tam umare yayin. As long as it has the taste and the appearance of wine, that's good enough. Amar Rabbi Yirmiyah says, mitzvah lotzes b'yayin edom. There's a mitzvah to use red wine. Shenemar, like the pasuk says, altera yayin ki yasadim, ki yitein bekos eino v'gomer. So from that pasuk we learn out, ki yasadim, that the wine, it's better that it should be red. So the Gemara is saying, number one, it should be red. And the Gemara previously, it doesn't matter how diluted it is, again, as long as it has the taste and the appearance of wine. And the Gemara continues, Tani, it was taught, mevushal k'metuvel. If you have yayin mevushal, if you have wine that's cooked, that's the same thing as metuvel. That's the same thing as we said before, yayin kunditin, yayin with the besamim and the spices, that's going to be the same din. The Gemara says similarly, ma'u lotzes b'yayin mevushal. When it comes to dalit kosos on Pesach, are you yotze if you use yayin mevushal, if you use cooked wine? Amar Rabbi Yonah says, yotzin b'yayin mevushal. You are yotze with yayin mevushal. And the Gemara says, Rabbi Yonah l'taimeh. Rabbi Yonah followed his own reasoning. To Rabbi Yonah, karav eshasi arba kasi de pischa, because Rabbi Yonah, when he used to drink the 4 cups of wine on Pesach, have a chazik reisha ar chaga. He would be basically have a strong headache all the way until the next Chag. The idea is it was difficult for him to drink wine. That's why he was lenient to say yayin mevushal, because that type of wine is not as strong. And the Gemara continues with a story along these lines. Chamise choda machonisa. There was once a certain noblewoman who saw Rabbi Yonah, apoi nihirin. She saw that his face was like lit up. So Amra, she said, Saba, when an elderly man, choda mehani tlos milan isbach. One of the following 3 things must be true. Oh, the shasri chamrat. Either you drink some wine, that's why your face is shining. Oh, the mole beribisat, or maybe you the malvi beribisat. Maybe you lent money with ribis, meaning you made money in a very easy fashion. You lent money for interest, and therefore your face is shining because you don't have the worries of parnasa. Oh, the megadol chazeriat, or maybe you're somebody who raises chazer and pigs. Another way that a person can become wealthy. So Amar Los, he said to her, Teipach rucha dahi itzda dechada meilin tlas mili lesbi. He says, no, it's not true. This woman, her spirit is incorrect. In reality, I don't have any of these three things. The reason why my face is shining is because it's easy for me to recall my learning. The learning is common to me. Like the pasuk says, Chachmas Adam toyer panav. The wisdom of a person can make his face shine. And the Gemara continues, Rabbi Avo asi l'Tiveria. Rabbi Avo came to Tiveria. Chamone talmidoi de Rabbi Yochanan ape nehorin. Again, the students of Rabbi Yochanan, they saw that his face was shining. Amrun talmidim le Rabbi Yochanan. So the talmidim said to Rabbi Yochanan, Ashkach Rabbi Avo sima. Rabbi Avo must have found some kind of pearl, some kind of gem. That's why he's happy. Asal agabe, so then he came in front of Rabbi Yochanan. Rabbi Avo came in front of Rabbi Yochanan. Amar le, Rabbi Yochanan said to him, Mayo raisa chadita shemaita. What new sugi of Torah did you learn? That must be why your face is shining. Amar le said to him, Tosefta atika. I found an old Tosefta, that's why I'm so happy. Kara alen, Rabbi Yochanan called about him, Chachmas Adam tar panav. Again, the wisdom of a person makes his face shine. Gemara continues, Amar Reb Chanin. Reb Chanin says, Luga de Oraisa, the lug of the Torah, Tamunsa Atika de Moraisa de Tzipuri. This is an old measurement called Tamunsa that was used to measure the brine, the fish brine in Tzipore. Amar Reb Yonah said, V'chachamna la deveis Rabbi Yanai have a mechilin bodevash. He says, I'm familiar with this because this in the house of Rabbi Yanai, they used it to measure honey. And the Gemara continues, Tani, it was taught, Chatzi Shminis Tavronis, half of an eighth Tavronis, and the Gra takes out this last line from Tani till the end of the line, and we'll continue with this discussion in the next video on Daf Tes Amud Aleph.